doing the overview of what the public database is. And then we have Bill from Kansas, Tyler from Wisconsin, and Spencer from Missouri that are going to talk about each of their applications and how they use public database. And for you three, there's one slide per each, so I will just put the slide up and then allow you to begin talking. So looks like we have a few people still coming back from lunch. Start in a couple of minutes, but I was just confirming with the other presenters that I'll give you control at that time. So I think I'll begin. I'm glad that Margaret was excited about PDB presentation. Times are a bit off on that slide.
We have now been going 2 hours after Pacific, but
yeah. Susie created this. Maybe that's the noon is the only right time. I agree. So click on here. Public database. Our vision for the public database. Why did it get created in the first place? You know, what is it supposed to do? Someone will have to. I won't have the chat window up, so someone will have to tell me if someone asks a question. Some of the technical implementations for how people are using it. There are various ways that people are accessing the public database. And then again, there's some states that don't use it at all. The difference between what the public database used to be and what it is now, or how it's updated now. Sorry, I have a dog choking on our smoke here. Then we're going to have some states, as I mentioned, share how they use the public database. And then in the end, we'll get some ideas or things that maybe people want to see us do differently and how this looks in the future. So the reason we had the creation of the public database originally was that the internal database is a very complicated, tons of tables with multiple ways of getting to the same data through those tables. And so we needed just a common, well-documented way to access your data through querying and the different types of Oracle tools that can look at the data. And we used to, in Tratus days, access or update the public database as the transactions happened. So the public database was always intact in all states' cases. As a transaction happened, it would get pushed to the public database. When we developed Jackalope, we made it an optional feature. It isn't built in every state. If your state doesn't use it, then we didn't create it. There would be no reason to take up the space, which it is quite a space hog to create such a thing if nobody was going to access it. And we also changed the method that it gets updated from during each transaction to being every night. I guess it could be at any frequency that someone would request, but currently in all of the use cases, it happens on a per night basis. So everything that happened during the day gets pushed to the public database that night. So then the next day when you would come in and query, you'd have your updated transactions. So hopefully, we're hoping that public database meets the needs for what people are using it for to do their querying. So I mentioned there's some different ways that people can access the public database. So there's the Jackalope database, which I mentioned is a very complicated, not friendly to query, large database. And then we have the transactions that go to the public database that are the simplified few minimum tables that you can easily query, which, by the way, we do have documentation on it, which I'm working to update. There are some cases where we have new statistics that are in there that we need to get documented for users. And then there are some cases where we have statistics documented that were in there that are actually not in there. So I was hoping to have that done by this week. It's not quite done yet. Once I'm finished doing the evaluation of what's there, what's not there, then we're going to have an internal meeting amongst ourselves to see if what may need to change, what new additions may need to be in there. So in the case of states where you, or clients, where you host your own Jackalope database, then you have an intranet connection to that Jackalope database at your leisure. You can connect using whatever tools that you use at any time because you are already on the same network as your Jackalope database. Then we have a few states, two of our large, very big user access states, Idaho and Wisconsin, where we actually export their public database on a weekly basis. So every weekend we create the export, we put it out onto FTP, then they have their IT department or some person in-house download that export. They have to unzip that export, and then they have to insert that exported data back into the database that they maintain. It's probably a lengthy process. I know in some cases for Wisconsin it takes 2 days to create and zip their file. So then I don't know what the turnaround is on their side to get that then imported for the users to access. And Idaho's takes overnight. Then we have Kansas, who has direct internet connectivity through a VPN server. Joe, you can correct me if I state any of the technical things incorrectly. There is a dedicated VPN server that allows them to have a constant 24-hour connection to the Jackalope public database.
Yeah, essentially they have.
Go ahead.
We set up a VPN endpoint so that our hosted Jackalope server actually looks like it's on their network. So it's actually pretty cool, and it allows them to avoid all these export-import craziness. And yeah, like Catherine says, they can access it 24/7. They don't have to establish a VPN connection first or anything like that. It's just part of their standard network there at KDOT.
The other option that is available is just a plain old VPN connection to the hosted Jackalope server and querying, pardon? So a VPN connection by a user to the Jackalope hosted server where Jackalope public database querying could take place. Wisconsin has a VPN connection established, but they don't use it for that purpose, but that is an option. Those are the different ways that people have access to their Jackalope public database. And now Bill will talk about his use of a public database.
Okay, well, the reason that we wanted to have that direct connection within our network is that the GIS packages all expect to have a database connection. And to automate that, it was better to have a database connection rather than trying to reconnect to an exported file every time we wanted to make a map. We use it to generate count maps. We will shortly, I hope, be using it to generate assignment maps for the field staff, just showing where they should count. One of the things that was added to our PDB connection was the scheduler table. That isn't a standard part of the PDB, I guess. I think somebody had asked about that yesterday. It also gives, we can provide access to updating some of the other databases more or less automatically from finished data. So that, I mean, this would be for the high volume users, so that we don't actually have to be sending spreadsheets back and forth or whatever. We wrote some special reports for the COVID traffic against this. This would be something that on a longer time frame, it might be a special report that we would have High Desert build for us, but you know, trying to get it done quickly to do the reporting, and it's kind of a special report that we probably will stop doing after a while. So it was just a matter of having automatic access, just automate that report. The reason we wanted to do it with a connection instead of an export was when the IT people heard about their options, they didn't want to have somebody available to load the database every week or every day or whatever it would require. So their solution that they preferred was just to have somebody there to set up the network, somebody else to do the DBA magic to make the database links, and then from there, anyone who needs data needs to know how to use SQL from a local connection. And most of our traffic staff don't directly use it anyway. They'll push a button to do a report out of Access or Crystal Reports or something, or to be loading into their own database. That's all I have.
Joe, do you want to speak on the uniqueness of that Kansas database connection in the realm of, I mean, we had to hire a consultant to come in and set it up. It wasn't just a simple thing that we made happen.
Yeah,
nearly.
it's true. I mean, we don't have the IT skills to deal with that. And it was a serious pain in the butt to do. But in the end, it's actually really cool. It occurs to me, you know, if we've been able to do that, you know, with Idaho or Wisconsin, you know, we would have saved ourselves a whole lot of effort in the long run. It is a pain in the butt to set up. It required an entirely different server that we had to provision. It's a cheap server, but it was still extra costs. But now that it's done, I mean, just the ability to have your external hosted Jackalope server on your network was a huge advantage. So yeah, if other people are interested in that, it's something that we can do now. We have, not us, but we have an IT resource that can kind of do that for us. If you're interested, let us know. We can look into that for you.
Any questions for Bill on his details? Okay, thanks, Bill. Now we'll go to Spencer.
The main uses we have for the public database are every week when we finish running short counts, we run a trend analysis by all the historical data we have for each site and run a few statistical checks to check mean versus standard deviation for all counts that we've ever collected for a site to give us a shorter list of counts to manually check over at the end of the week. We also, you know, like most of you, I'm sure, have used the public database to do ad hoc reporting for the pandemic. We were reporting every day for the first month and a half after we were sent home here in Missouri, and then weekdays until mid-June, and we've gone to weekly reports since then, which has been much better, but gave us the flexibility, for better or for worse, to be able to report daily. Mostly at the end of the year, we pull most of the statistics from the public database into our transportation management system, which is where most of our internal and external users access our data through, so they don't have to know how to navigate the public database in any way. We have several crystal reports set up to run annual reports on different roadways. We have an application built that does hourly data for maintenance or construction uses, and an interactive map with ADTs, class data, and hourly data on every segment that we maintain in the state. I do a fair bit of SQL developer within the public database to fulfill external traffic requests from our MPOs. We have one particular one in Springfield, Missouri that that entire area is growing faster than everywhere else in the state. And they've got a really crack team of people down there that do a lot of stuff with our data, and they ask for some really specific things like all of our continuous data in 15-minute increments by all 15 axle bin classes. So that gets a little hairy when putting together, but we enjoy not needing IT support for, you know, most of our needs, because that was a huge roadblock for getting our public database set up in the first place. So it's nice to not have to run into that on a weekly basis now.
Yeah.
That's about all we've got.
And I know you use a lot of those views that are in the public database. So not just the PDB tables, but the views that go on top of those. I think Missouri is one of our biggest users, and other users in this room familiar with PDB maybe also had used V3 type views. And if you're missing them or used to use them a lot, we've basically now, after perfection, reproduced them completely from Tratus. It took a little bit to get there.
And we appreciate that very much.
Oh, thanks, Jeff. Any questions for Spencer? Okay, our next is Tyler from Wisconsin.
Yep.
Hi
How's
there.
everybody doing? I'm up.
Hey,
Very
Tyler.
similar to hi. Very similar to Kansas and Missouri. What their uses are. Our public database is pretty large because it includes such a like the 15-minute intervals and per vehicle data. But we use it for updating our different traffic segment data. We also have many different units within our DOT that use the large data set, which such as the forecasting unit. They take a large copy of our JPDB stat and then use that data within an application they just develop for their different forecasting projects, and then as well as asset management, very similar to the forecasting unit. Use that large data set for their goals, and from like an IT perspective, we're looking to like the enterprise data integration, providing this traffic data for other DOT systems like the two I just mentioned, such as forecasting and then highway programming and planning, safety, pavement design, trying currently getting a GIS data repository, and then such as AGO and portal applications, which those forecasting and asset management applications use. And then I currently developing a couple within our traffic data unit that would be using the same data, such as our TC map, which is traffic count map that shows the different ADTs, count locations, and throughout the years, all the historical data. Within WISDOT, we have IT staff that, or types of support needed. We have IT staff that assist in our weekly export because it is large and it occurs over the weekend, and it can be kind of problematic, troublesome on our end, but with that staff, it has been running really smoothly, and we get confirmation emails when it's imported and then live that we can use the data.
I don't
And
know how
also,
large it is before export.
we've
Or
also,
before
like,
it's
such as
used.
all these other users that have been using the data have been helpful too in like finding.
I didn't mean to
Oh.
interrupt.
I'm not sure on the Fort Zip, but I know like the most recent one. You're good.
Okay.
In size comparison, I guess I could give you that most recent one this last week was 400, or just JPDB stat was 443 gigabytes, which is
Yeah.
like 4.5 billion rows, I believe, is that number equals out to. But
Yeah, I was going to say zipped, it's like 45 gig. And so what it is before that, I was just going to kind of give the perspective of how large that
for size wise,
export.
that is.
Yeah,
And
large.
and that was, yeah, having other users using, possibly where we had some issues was some missing data and some. Yep,
I
very
think you
large.
might
And
have a, is everyone missing a few
worked out the
words
kinks
of
here, and
Tyler?
everything's been going a lot smoother, and everything's working correct. We get that weekly export, and Monday.
Yeah, I think his audio is spotty and it's delayed. I've noticed. Sorry, Tyler. Still there?
Oh, I could try calling and yep.
Okay, he's gonna call in.
Okay. Well, while he's calling in, I got a message from Christy, and she said, and I'm not sure what you meant by this, Christy, where are the other states, Kentucky, Wyoming? They don't use the public database, either of them. Is that your question?
Well, I saw that we were on there, but we must not use the public database either. We just connect to the big old confusing database.
If anyone wants to implement the public database, I mean, it just is a request to us, and then we would have to organize it with your IT department, and a very large consideration for it is going to be the size. Again, like Tyler said, just the public database itself is 400 gig. So, you know, any state that's interested, that's not currently using the public database, it's just a matter of coordinating with us to build it for you.
And
I'm back, guys, too.
Indexes. So it's actually probably quite a bit bigger than that.
Oh, so that doesn't include indexes.
Yeah, the export size does not include indexes.
Yeah. And one other flavor or export that happens is that Idaho gets an export monthly that is all the individual vehicle records on top of the regular public database. So that's a whole other huge export.
And it's an export we're thinking for.
Can you guys hear me?
Hi, yes, I heard you just now.
All righty. I called in on my cell phone here. I don't know if you guys want me to go back through it or if you heard enough.
Susie had
Hi.
a question, Tyler. I don't know if you saw it, but Susie was asking, do you know if IT tech support is open to a PDB implementation like Kansas is, you know, where you have a direct connection and you don't have to go through the process of all this?
There will be, we're going to probably run into some IT security issues, but I know like with what we were doing with Travis to confirm our exports where we VPN to check, or I did a traffic, I believe, server with Travis on it. Since that went away, it is possible, but I know I thought we even maybe brought that up in the past, but where we might have some more restrictive IT issues, security issues.
Yep, fair.
Yep. But yeah, I know I would love to possibly be where Kansas is someday. Have that live direct connect.
You do have a VPN connection to the server, like you said, and you were you guys access, yeah. So you've been allowed some sort of VPN ness. Maybe they would be open to that. Yeah.
Yep. I think we definitely would like to, and that's someday we definitely hope to, and we will work towards that one. Hopefully in the near future. I know with our current management is definitely looking to that because they were getting pretty or looking forward to like the GIS kind of side of things with Portal and ArcGIS Online, and we're having a spatial data repository rather than having it on SD Oracle SDE, where we'll have both still, but we're pushing towards that kind of future.
Does anyone have any questions for Tyler?
Hopefully everybody got the gist of it with me in and out.
Mostly you were present. It just kind of got to the end where we commented that, yeah, you seemed delayed and maybe we missed a few words, but I think we mostly got what you were communicating.
All right. Yep. And then, going into this next slide, kick it off here, that other improvements that may be useful is, first off, right there is what we were just kind of speaking of, is IT security requirement challenges. And I think that's with the same as Kansas, Missouri, and probably all states. If Spencer, Bill want to speak up possibly on that?
I know in Missouri we had an issue where we had one department that was hosting all of our servers and then had to switch over to a different department partway through us trying to get our Jackalope server set up, and caused all kinds of delays in our getting implemented. So nothing on the back end though. Once we got everything set up, it was great.
Yep. Same with Wisconsin. And then another one possibly I know been brought up is over time when like changes are made to a certain like site, say in the PDB site table, or specifically this PDB site, they'll say like lanes changes as being able to like track that on that second bullet point there when site type, name, and other info changes. Is having kind of like a temporal or time frame of like, say, site was at 1 and 1 up till this year, and then it changed to 2 and 2 this year, and it's been that way since, and maybe it has tracking changes like that within the PDB tables.
Yeah.
And then
No, go ahead. That's fine.
Okay. Yep. And then which we kind of got to between WSDOT and HCP as a QA/QC at the earliest point of departure from the Jackalope to WSDOT on that export. And we did have a few little hiccups here and there with some data issues, but now HCT has implemented a kind of a QC/QA, what I was kind of doing on our end once we got the export, and so now they're kind of doing some work for me before they even send out the export to make sure they're confirming totals and particular data, all data that's there within the export before we even receive it over the weekend. Which is huge and helps reassure the I won't have too big of a headache on Mondays.
So what he's referring to is on a weekly basis, Cindy runs a audit on their table, and it does it by year, I believe. Statistic by year, and what it was last week and what it is this week when we're going to prepare the export for you. And then if any years seem to change unexpectedly, 2008 either went down or up in statistics, and we let Wisconsin know earlier. Did they go do a bunch of purges on 2008's data? Did they run new data on 2008 over the week, or did something happen in the public database that we all needed to be aware of? So she just tracks it by year, number of transactions, so that earlier rather than later someone notices something might have changed in the database that was or wasn't expected. This next,
The next
was this a,
uh, bullet point on there, I had brought up while we were all chatting that we had a few issues while recording things for the pandemic where, you know, we might, you know, have not properly uploaded several sites, or, you know, things just didn't get run through Jackalope and we didn't realize it until after the overnight refresh of PDB had already kicked off. And usually that happened during the week, and so we were able to get a hold of Catherine or Laura and have them refresh our public database after everything was done, but had brought up if it would be possible in the future to have something where we would be able to refresh our public database from our location in case that were to happen over a weekend or something while you all aren't available.
so Jeff would have to maybe, or Joe could speak to that, but so if they contact us and say, hey, we ran data and we want it now, we don't want to wait for the overnight run, you know, I'd get in and just run the nightly job, but I'd run it right then ad hoc. So
Yeah, I mean,
train them on.
it wouldn't be hard to, you know, put a menu option in Jackalope that would allow you to run that on an ad hoc basis, basically. Run the job at any time. That would not be hard. And if we use the, you know, Jeff can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if we just use the dbmsjob.run command, we don't have to worry about it overlapping and having two runs running at the same time or anything like that. So yeah, I don't think that's a hard problem.
Maybe have it pop up a window that asks, are you sure you really, really want to do this? Just so we don't accidentally click it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's actually not too hard. And I think Oracle has the framework to allow us. The biggest danger in this is just having multiple jobs run at once. That's
Right.
the concern. But I think we can get around that by using Oracle's built-in tools. And if that statement is true, then I think this is actually a pretty easy problem to solve.
Yeah, we have to verify. The one open question I have is, I mean, there are a couple questions I have relating to running it from Java. First thing we'd have to do is make sure that it's not running already. But then if it's not running already, then, for example, if you from SQL, if you were to start it again, it would prevent the nightly job. So that part we wouldn't have to worry about.
Yeah, so we'll do some research. I think this actually might not be that
No.
tough. Yeah. Thanks, Jeff.
Like I said, it's not something that comes up very often, but, you know, we have another pandemic hit us anytime soon.
Just so you know, usually I still check email on weekends. So even most likely if it happened on a weekend, I would still see your email and it would probably still get done for you.
Yeah, and then the last one there is related to like our weekly exports. We're in need of like that recently with the pandemic. We need real-time update support operational needs where we had to wait each week to get that data we did our process the day of, where we're reporting daily to our secretary offices, governor offices on COVID daily traffic reporting. We couldn't do that with PDB. We had to actually use the actual like raw data files from the counters to get that daily traffic, because we didn't have access to it within Jackalope or the PDB that day. And then also being just kind of, it would help our real-time updates would help do a better like QA QC of say short-term counts on every weekly short-term counts. That date was in there the day of or the next day. we'd be able to do some better QA/QC with PDB to automate some QA/QC that way.
And Rod, also from Rob, had a question. Had a question asking, now that we had gone through the effort with Kansas, do we suggest their method as our preferred method, as probably the best way to do it, if that was an option for everyone?
I mean, it's all about the IT, your internal IT policies and security policies. But yeah, if those aren't, a roadblock, then by all means, it is so much easier to do what Bill's doing in the long run. The short run, again, is painful, but the long run, so much easier than, managing these huge zip files and unzipping them and importing them, QCing them and all that. Yeah, Rod, I would definitely suggest using Kansas's model if you can get away with it, and with the huge caveat that IT people are probably going to freak out. But still, it's worth a shot.
Maybe they would really work hard to make it an option, though, if it relieved them of the responsibility of the weekly export import FTP process.
Yeah.
So because it would benefit them for their time and effort.
No, absolutely. If
Yeah.
the poor person that has to manage that process is also responsible for the decision to whether or not they can use VPN, that'd be a slam dunk.
That's right.
Yeah.
There is a cost involved. I was just going to mention it's very minimal, but there would be an additional cost to.
Yeah, I think
that.
what we did with Kansas was like $3,000 a year. There was because we actually have to provision a whole new server to act as an endpoint between you and us, but it's not much, and it does save so much time. And I also have a question if we're done with. Was that the end of the presentation, Catherine? Or?
No, I think, well, real quickly, I think maybe was Tyler going to talk about other reporting, the final bullet, Tyler?
Oh, I did speak on the real-time updates.
The field data collection tracking?
Oh, field data, yeah. Yeah, we're just having that, kind of like better using like the PDB for QA/QC, automated, like an automated QA/QC, if it was updated live, like such a live real-time updates, having that available, then you could run an automated script to possibly, instead of using manually going and doing the QA/QC, use SQL developer to pull out data that would, or run a script that would pull out certain flag sites possibly or data. So you say it's short-term counts, and you're comparing it percent change from the last year collected to this current year. That would allow for something like that to have it on a weekly basis, because we're trying to get recounts sent out the week of when we are short-term counting. We're trying to get them out as soon as possible because they're in the area and they can possibly get them collected quicker that way. And then being able landed on that one.
Nicholas also put in the chat window an option that they had implemented. And I don't know if that means that it's implemented or you're looking into it, Nicholas. You went down the road with Google. I'm not sure what you.
We're right on the cusp of it being implemented now.
Okay.
So we basically set up the securities for VPN so that way we could copy out the public database once a week to put it up into the data lake in the Google Cloud Storage, and that way we can access the information using the data warehouse with like BigQuery and all that fun stuff.
Maybe that's another option, Joe.
Yeah, that didn't make it onto our diagram, but that's that is another thing. It's just a whole third-party thing using the Google's big data infrastructure to use that for sure.
Honestly, I'm still going to be probably primarily using the public database as is normally. The big issue is that we have different applications and different users that are asking for access to a lot of our continuous volumes, and there's just no easy way of doing it. So this is where we started to go down that road for this type of solution.
Yeah.
It sounds like Margaret wanted to maybe get a idea from Bill on how he got, or Kansas got around IT security concerns.
Okay. IT security was involved in the server-to-server VPN.
Yes.
So once they were satisfied with that, and they did it, after that, I mean, no matter what we do, it looks like it's internal as far as what the DBAs did. So once security was happy with that server-to-server VPN, they were happy, they were done.
Yeah.
And
we had to follow all their protocol, and Joe could speak to that more, but.
Yeah. I mean, it helped that they were invested in getting this done, because we started off just having an ad hoc sort of VPN connection. Bill could double click an icon on his machine and establish a VPN connection, and that just wasn't good enough for their needs. So they actually drove the requirement of having that permanent enterprise, server to server VPN connection. So I think that helped. I had a question too, if we're done.
This is it.
So if I may then, I mean, one of my big concerns is, if we were rewriting Jackalope today, we wouldn't have a public database if we could get away with it. We would have, the technology is such now that the standard solution to that is to have a web service, a REST API that people could hit if they want data and query the data in a nice, seamless fashion, just using web services, things like that. And that's really appealing to us. The public database is a huge chore. First of all, it doubles the size of your database, and it actually it more than doubles the size of your database because we have all these indexes on it. It uses a huge amount of resources because of the update process. It takes a lot longer to back up your databases because, again, your databases are twice the size that they would normally be. And from an architecture standpoint, having the public database means you have two versions of the truth out there, and you have to worry about synchronization issues all the time. Did this count actually get propagated to the public database, or did it not? The ideal situation is we don't have a public database at all. We just have, web services that interact directly with our internal tables to give you the data that you need. So my question to the public database users that are, using this is, do you ever see a place in the future where you could get away with something like I'm talking about, having a REST endpoint that allows you to pull data?
We would do it today if you had it available.
Is that
our preference is that we query our database directly. A lot of where we came from was that we had to, if we wanted to query anything to get the data that we needed out, the only place we knew that we could get it was the PDB stat table. If it's available in other ways that we could just query directly into the database, we'd be thrilled with that.
Great. I love to hear that. How about the other people?
It's something that's more user-friendly than the current PDB tables, where you don't have to decode everything.
Yeah, exactly. It's not user-friendly at all. If you had a web service where you could say, get volume data by station number or something like that, and you pass in a station number and a date. Yeah.
I think web services would work well for what we're doing as well.
Okay, well, I'm thrilled to hear that. I mean, I would love to be able to eventually get rid of the public database. And because it is a huge resource sink, it's using up tons of resources on everybody's databases. And more than anything, it's the two versions of the truth thing. You know, Wisconsin knows, Idaho knows too. You know, oh, that group of sites didn't sync up because of X, and then we've got to go figure out why it didn't synchronize and blah blah blah. It's so much nicer just having one version of the truth, than having an easy to use web service layer on top of that. So.
I think Nicholas is bringing up, though, they'd probably still go down the same path they're going down before, but then some of those very institutional uses of it probably couldn't change to using a REST service. I don't know.
The way I would see it working, and this addresses what Margaret's saying too, is we get a very well documented, an easy to use endpoint, and get it out there and try to get people like Margaret's group and Bill's group and everybody else's to start using it as much as they can, and weed away all the use case, the times the actual PDB is being used, until we're down to those 1 or 2 or 3 big institutional things, and then we go on our hands and knees and beg them to change it or something. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I agree, Margaret, no matter what, there's going to be a huge transition time. And I also don't expect we'll be able to just get away with getting rid of the public database altogether immediately. But my hope is that by getting a better replacement out there, we can at least start going down that path and eventually getting rid of it altogether, because yeah, it's a pain.
It's possible that there are a few use cases we solve with tighter integration, and then we try to do the public interface for all of the stuff that's easy to prepackage, and we kind of know what the use case is, and it's simple, good for that format. So,
yeah.
That would also bring all users able to use it. Like the beginning statement today was that not all states have the public database built and are using it.
Yeah.
As Christy pointed out, she's querying the big old scary database. So.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I don't see anyone arguing that wouldn't be a good idea.
Yeah, and we have that framework already established. That last bullet on the slide, our Jackalope Web Services, that actually does exist. It's not vaporware. We just don't have very interesting endpoints right now. I think you could do things like submit monthly and a couple of other things. Nothing super interesting through it, but the idea would be to really beef that up so that you can pretty much do anything that you do with the public database through a Jackalope Web Service. So. Okay.
I think we're on time to head out unless anyone else has any questions, and come back in 10 minutes for annual processing all phases other than HPMS.